This is Surrogacy Unwrapped. Today's episode, travel expectations. How much travel is involved in the surrogacy journey?
Welcome. We are discussing travel expectations today.
Yes.
Before we jump into that, let's give some introductions here. So my name is Kristie. I am the surrogate coordinator with Family Choice Surrogacy. I used to do a good amount of work when it came to the travel of the journey process, but now I really don't. That has been gratefully and joyfully passed along to Mariah in her case management role. I would say about the only thing that I really have to do now is kind of talk to our surrogates about their preferences when it comes to matching and kind of what their desires are for the traveling and the journey. Mariah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Mariah. I'm the case manager at Family Choice Surrogacy.
All right, with that said, let's get going and talk about travel. So, Mariah, we're both experienced surrogates here. I think we both can attest to the fact that travel does take place to some extent, whether it's near or far, in a surrogacy journey. So, could you explain in a big picture what travel could look like for a surrogate in a surrogacy journey?
Yeah, so I'll obviously touch on this more specifically in a bit, but broad picture, you're going to be traveling for things like medical screening, embryo transfer, monitoring appointments that happen leading up to embryo transfer and after embryo transfer, and then, of course, like OBGYN appointments, things like that. Those should be more local to you, but even at that, depending on where you live, if you're in a more rural area, you'll have to travel out for those. Um, but there is a commitment to travel, and it is kind of one of those things that I think people don't realize is that you travel to the intended parents clinic. So you could be matched with somebody local to you in Indiana or wherever, but their clinic might be in San Diego, California. So you could be traveling to San Diego for some of these appointments.
That's true. And so let's break it down kind of, let's say before pregnancy. What would that expectation look like before the surrogate has ever become pregnant when it comes to travel? And I think it's important to note, failed transfers or failed
Yes.
cycles, et cetera, how that could play a role.
Yeah, so I mean, this answer can vary widely, but we'll start with kind of the two different types of transfers that can happen, being a modified natural transfer or a natural transfer, or a medicated cycle. And so, modified natural transfers take more screening appointments. You have to go and have your levels checked more often. They have to do sometimes an extra scan to see how your lining is. And those are hopefully done at a monitoring clinic local to you, but every once in a while you do have to travel back to the IVF clinic that you're working with in order to go to those. So, I mean, I completely skipped over medical clearance. You have to travel for medical clearance before you even get to
I didn't even catch
transfer.
it.
So you're going
And
to
that
travel.
has to be at the intended parents clinic.
Yes.
The medical clearance we can't do at a monitoring facility closer to home.
Yeah.
Again, your clinic could be close to home, but in the case it isn't, that has to be done at the actual IP's clinic.
Yes. I actually have seen one case where it was done locally. It ended up being a complete pain in the butt, and we ended up having to have her travel again to the clinic because it was not sufficient enough. So we've tried to work around it before, and really truly the IVF clinic that you're working with needs very specific things, and if it's missed it becomes an even bigger problem. So yes, wherever the IP's embryos are is where you will travel. And you will go, it's usually a 2-day trip, depending on how far you are. If you're flying, we say it's usually a 2-day trip. If you're driving, it can be the same day, but all of our benefits packages include hotel stay for over a certain amount of miles. So you go out the day before because we want you there that morning so that way you don't have to be worried about traffic or getting stuck or getting a flat tire or whatever. You travel out the day before, you stay at the hotel, and then morning of you wake up, and usually your appointment is very early, and you go through all of your medical screening and blood tests and usually a HSG or certain tests that they'll have you do. And then you travel home that same day. So if you fly, it's usually a quick turn. You get your appointment done and then you haul right to the airport, jump on a plane. It's Kristie's worst nightmare.
I like ample airport time.
Yes. So really exciting, but it's really fun. You get to bring a companion, which is awesome. So I always tell surrogates, if you want to bring a support person, you can. If you want to get away from your kids and you just want a quiet hotel room with nobody saying, "Mom, can I have a snack?" then that's also an option too.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was all great information. And to Mariah's point, a thing that I was thinking about is those medical screening appointments on average. I mean, they take several hours. So it's a lengthy process in a day. Okay, so you hit on before pregnancy travel
Yes.
expectations. And so now the transfer has taken place, which, by the way, again, that transfer is going to happen at the intended parents clinic where they have their embryos created at. What happens after the point of transfer? How often would one be traveling potentially?
So then leading up to transfer, you'll have a couple appointments, usually a baseline appointment and a mid-cycle appointment, and that's before transfer. It'll be at your monitoring clinic, which is local to you, as local as we can find.
Right.
Now, caveat, monitoring clinics are notoriously difficult to find. Even
Yeah.
if you have an IVF clinic near you, it does not mean they accept monitoring patients, and that
Very true.
has been a giant pain point for us. But then you go to your monitoring appointments, and then transfer happens. You travel to the clinic, and that is usually a 3-day appointment. So usually you fly out day before, same thing. We want you there nice and on time and ready to go. You get a good night's sleep. Morning of your transfer, you go in. Transfer appointments can kind of vary. Sometimes they're first thing in the morning, sometimes they're at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, which I think is just unfair, but that's, who am I to
Not our
say?
choice.
Yep. So you go to your appointment and you have your transfer, and then most IVF clinics do not want you to travel home same day. Some of them are okay with it. We usually ask, especially if you're like, "Hey, I really want to get back. I would like to not pay for an extra night of childcare, whatever." But in my experience, most of the time the clinic says, "Nope, no traveling for 24 hours after the transfer." So then you will go home the next day. And yeah, you travel home, and after that, then you go back to your monitoring appointments at your clinic that is local to you.
Yes. And then eventually you're going to start seeking care at your OB at a certain point of the pregnancy, which again, that should be also local to you.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of talk about the only part that I truly have involved in the traveling stuff at this point, and that is discussing this in the beginning. When you were matched here or working with Family Choice Surrogacy, I will have a conversation with you about your match preferences. Mariah will also follow it up with during her case manager kickoff call to make sure she has a clear understanding of the things you and I discussed and make sure you didn't have any change of hearts of everything from our time of talking. But I want to connect with you to find out if you have any proximity, distance, desires on what you are willing to do when it comes to travel expectations. I have worked with surrogates who say, "I am terrified of being in an airplane and flying. I can only drive. I will drive as far as you tell me to drive, but I refuse a plane." Or I will only go in a certain radius via car, whatever the case may be. Or I'm completely open. I will fly wherever you want me to go. So I want to find out those things about you so that we are looking at our intended parent options with that lens in mind. There are several factors that come into play when it comes to matching, but making sure we're not putting you in a predicament that would make things more difficult or uncomfortable, especially when it comes to travel, because it is a big part of your journey, is important to us. And so we will have a discussion. Part of your forms that you're completing and the intake process will involve you, working on those questions as well. So it's not just me that is having this discussion. And then again, we're going to clarify it once more. So we're all on the same page with Mariah.
Yes.
We do have intended parents who can be international. With that said, we never would request of you to go on any travel internationally. The intended parents who are international will have a clinic that is U.S. based, and their embryos will be created and stored here in the U.S. that is where you will attend the screening appointment, have the embryo transfer, and then potentially monitoring appointments if it's not something that we would do outside monitoring for. But you would never be required to travel out of the U.S.
I also would love to touch on at some point that you will not be required to travel for delivery. You will
Yes.
deliver local to you, and there are, I would say, almost zero circumstances where it's appropriate to travel for delivery. So that is not something that will ever be asked of you, nor should it be asked of you. So just
Say no.
keeping that in mind. Yes, yeah, that's a no. There's a lot of legal implications actually, and people think like, oh well, I've had somebody tell me, well, my intended parents were fine with me cash paying, and they were just going to cash pay and have me deliver at the hospital local to them. And it was like, nope, there's insurance problems because you do have insurance legally. It actually has to be put through insurance. The parentage order is done locally, and where your contract is there's so many different like factors that go into it. So it's not as simple as just kind of working around it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mariah, can you talk more specifically about surrogates who are out of state from the intended parents clinic, regardless of where their intended parents themselves live? But logistically speaking, those longer distance travels, the journeys that are going to be likely on a flight, what kind of you kind of hit on this a bit, on the average appointment length and how long we anticipate them being away from home. But is there anything else you want to talk about, like child care coordination and just in general, time off from work, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's important, depending on who you're working with. Of course, our agency has a benefits package that I can speak to, but every agency does things differently. And if you're doing it independently, then of course you're navigating these waters a little bit more alone. So it's really important one, it depends, has your monthly allowance started? And that usually does not start until after legal clearance has been granted. So if your monthly allowance is in full effect, then that means it usually covers local travel within 50 miles of you. It'll cover childcare for, quick local appointments. If not, then yeah, you have to consider are you going to be able to take the time off of work? Are you going to be allowed? Because sometimes with these appointments, you go for a lining check and they're like, your lining, we want it just a little bit thicker. We need you to come back tomorrow. And then you go back tomorrow and they're like, one more time. And you have to go back the next day.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know that you have to have some flexibility. We recommend talking to your employer about these things and letting them know that you're going to be embarking on this journey. But yeah, definitely there is, figuring out the time off of work, figuring out your childcare. This is a huge reason why support systems are so important in surrogacy journeys. Making sure that you have people available to take your kids and help, that you have a babysitter if you need one. And then, of course, you'll be reimbursed for mileage for driving, flying out of state. Yes, again, I've had people ask if they can take their kids to transfer. And while we love that idea, the kids can't actually be in the room for transfer. Most IVF clinics don't allow children under 18 or anyone under 18.
Yeah.
I've had somebody say, can I bring my little sister and it's as your companion? And it's like, yeah, but they can't actually go with you. So yeah, definitely taking into consideration those things, and knowing that it's going to be a little bit demanding.
And I love that you mentioned flexibility. And there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of things. Journey of surrogacy, you really got to be flexible in general, from start to finish. While you will receive a calendar to some extent, as Mariah alluded to, there are things that are going to be out of everyone's control, and how your body tolerates and adjusts to the medications and preparation is one of them. They can only plan and expect so much, and either your body's going to respond or it isn't, and they might require more of you on a short notice. And so just having those backup plans and those conversations early will help reduce the issues involved. Additionally, if it is important to you or a necessity to you to bring a child or someone under the age of 18 on your travel that is potentially out of state, perhaps you're bringing someone else with you to watch the child in the hotel while you're having the transfer or something of that nature. We can help you kind of navigate what that could look like, how it could be done in a way that's appropriate and approved in whatever that situation and setting is.
Right. Which I mean, it's important to also bring up that then, you will come out of pocket for that because
Yeah,
that will be an extra person. You get one companion, but if you're bringing another person that needs to take, there's certain logistics tied around that would not be the intended parent's responsibility.
agreed. Speaking of expenses, let's
Yes.
talk about those travel expenses, near or far. How are they covered? How does it all work out? How do we get reimbursed if needed?
Yeah. So from a GC perspective, what happens is you are covered. Now, with that in mind, we book your travel and we take into consideration. Of course, we don't want you on a flight with 3 layovers. That sounds horrible and could create a logistical nightmare.
Yes.
But we also want to ensure that we are not overspending intended parents' funds. So we have a certain amount of funds dedicated to travel. For our specific agency, intended parents will sign something saying under this amount you agree to. If it ends up being over this amount, we will reach out for uh, approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, approval, because sometimes, especially those East Coast to West Coast trips, they
Mm-hmm.
just can get so pricey. Um, when the clinics are in places like, oh gosh, I mean, I'm just thinking of like DC area, San Diego, the hotel costs tend to be more expensive, and sometimes, especially if there's an event going on, we can't get it any cheaper than what we can get
And
it.
sometimes the short notice of said, appointment times don't allow for a better rate. That
Yes.
we hope.
Yes. So surrogates will not pay out of pocket for, I would say, most things. They will get their flight and mileage covered, flight and or mileage, depending on if they're driving or flying.
Mhm.
There's a stipend for rideshare like Uber, Lyft. I always, always, always ask our surrogates to please price compare Uber and Lyft, because sometimes I'll type in an address to Uber and it's like $56 and I type it into Lyft and it's $13.
Oh
Please
gosh, that's a good tip.
take,
I didn't even realize
yeah,
that.
please take the moment to just price compare, because you're going to be standing there waiting anyways.
Mm,
And it really can save them so much money. So,
good to
um, California also has this weird new thing called Waymo, and they're driverless cars, and they are very interesting.
know.
I took one to a concert, but anyways, it's another version. So there are options out there. Just try and, look at the different options, at least 2 of them. So we have up to a certain amount is reimbursed daily. And of course, if you go over that and you have no control, then we just reach out to intended parents and ask for their permission and approval to reimburse above that amount. But that's part of why it's important for you to kind of, look at prices and try and keep it under that. Also, you will get a meal stipend, so you get a certain amount per day. It does, for us personally, it does not change based on the companion. It's just a flat rate. It covers your meals. Other agencies I know sometimes have it. If you bring a companion, it's more. If you don't bring a companion, it's less. Um, and then, of course, mileage will be reimbursed at the standard IRS rate.
If you decide to do a rental car, that is
Oh,
something that
yes.
is reimbursed as well. But it's not something that we can easily book for you, just with their whole credit card stuff. And did you
Well,
talk
and
about
legally we
hotel?
can't.
Ah,
Legally we cannot book a
darn.
rental car. So you will have to book yourself. And that is one of the main expenses that if you choose to do that, then you will have to pay up front and then submit for reimbursement.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
did you talk about hotel or lodging?
No, nope, completely skipped that one. Hotel, kind of the same thing. It'll depend on the area. We'll book you in a what we consider. We try to pick safe areas,
Hmm.
and we try to pick good areas. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, this one has continental breakfast and this one doesn't. They're $5 apart. We're going to pick the continental breakfast, so that way it hopefully saves you a stop.
Hmm.
Things like that. But yes, hotel is also covered by the intended parents. Now, there is certain times that they will ask you to put a card on file for um, like incidentals.
Hmm.
So sometimes you have to put some money down. We reserve it with a card, and every once in a while, the hotels love to give us a runaround, and
Hmm.
it makes my brain hurt, but they
Hmm.
will. I will book it and I will put a card on file. And then when the GC gets to the hotel, they'll say, nope, we need the card in person. And obviously we can't do that. So every once in a while I've had a surrogate say, nope, I just paid with my card, it's fine. And then we make sure you get reimbursed, of course.
Yeah.
But this is part of why it's important to be financially stable embarking on these journeys, because if you do have to pay for one of these expenses up front, we don't want it to be, at the detriment of, your finances.
Absolutely. And again, the intent of being a surrogate is not to have you ever be out of money, but being financially stable so you can support a cost up front while waiting for reimbursement is critical.
Yes.
Mariah pretty much kind of summarized this up already, but just to make sure that it is perfectly clear, at Family Choice Surrogacy, we are going to assist you with the booking of your travel. Your case manager, Mariah, is going to work with you on the coordination, what is the best method for your travel needs, what preference you have for airport, flight times, etc., and any other key components of your travel arrangements. She is going to coordinate and communicate with the intended parents if it were to exceed our amount that we had put into our documentation, and making sure that both parties are fully aware of the itinerary for the event in which the surrogate is having to travel for.
Yeah, so after I book, actually, that's an important point, that I will book it all. I work with the surrogate to try and make sure that it fits with her schedule and drive time and all of those things. And then I will send intended parents an email with a breakdown, line by line. Hotel cost this much, it came from escrow. She's going to fly, her and her companion, it cost this much, it came from escrow. She'll submit for her per diem after the fact. It's going to be this much. This is what we expect. So that way you have a better financial picture of the total.
Agreed. Perfect. Yeah. And so when it comes to support for the handling of travel, we have alluded to that they can bring their companion. And what's the importance or the reason that surrogates bring companions? What is that helpful for, I guess, in the role?
So I mean, it depends on the trip. Transfer especially is where actually a lot of clinics will require that you have someone with you. There have been a couple times I've seen them allow solo transfers, but for the most part you do need to have a companion. Now some clinics still require you to do what is it, like modified light rest or something, where after you transfer you go back to your hotel and you rest your uterus. You just calmly lay down and hang out. If you want to nap you can, but they don't want you like up and about. Now some clinics will tell you, nope, go walk a bunch, we need that blood flow. So it just depends on the clinic. But you do need to have a companion who's able to go get you meals if you need them. If something happens, God forbid, we never want it to, and we really, really hope that it doesn't, and we have safeguards in place in case it does. But if something happens and you start having some sort of reaction or bleeding or anything that is kind of worst case scenario, you need to have somebody with you that is equipped and able to handle that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but some clinics also use a medication protocol for transfer to help calm you in some cases.
Yes.
And that would be something you wouldn't likely be able to drive after taking.
Yes, they give you, what is it, Kristie?
Is it Valium?
Valium, thank you. They will give
Not
you
everyone
Valium.
does.
Not everyone. It's hit or miss. I've seen people ask to not, and sometimes they're willing, but it's a similar kind of idea behind acupuncture and all the things. It's to relax you. It's to kind of chill you out, make you feel, lower your stress levels. And so you can't drive. And they also will not allow you to get into an Uber whenever you've taken that medication. So you have to have somebody that can go with you or drive you.
Yeah. And those types of things are going to be questions that your case manager is helping make sure you have also asked, but that she is aware of as well. So when we are preparing your travel, we understand the clinical requirements, again, for if there's any bed rest after the transfer, any medication that would, mandate the companion, etc. So we are coordinating that with you.
Yes.
And then lastly on this topic, Mariah, while the surrogate is traveling, what is your role? How are you available and helping her?
Oh, this is a
during
fun question. Well, I am like a worried mom all of the time. So
that?
if you're traveling, I want to know that you landed. I want to know that you got in your hotel. I want to know that you slept well. I want to know what you had for breakfast. So
Pictures
I
every
will,
hour.
yes, I will take all of the check-ins. And then, of course, once I have those, I love to fill in your intended parents and just give them a quick little update. I'm sure you are as well. But I like to hear everything. Please let me know you got there safely. We've talked about this before, but I'm on the West Coast and we have a lot of surrogates on the East Coast. So I'm always like, I'll be awake, I promise, when you're going to land. Please send me a text that even if I'm not awake, I don't care. I would rather wake up and see a text that you landed safely.
Agreed.
Because I do worry about it. And I try when I know I have a surrogate who's traveling that to just be more available, make sure I have my phone near me in case something happens. We've had last minute flight cancellations and I love it. Their first call is me, and I'm like, I'm gonna help you, but we're gonna have to figure this out
Mm-hmm.
together. So I definitely, I want to be in the know and make sure that you're safe and everything's going well. If something does happen, absolutely, I'm here to help figure that out, change flights, whatever. But yeah, I'm really just here to support you and make sure that you get there okay.
Yeah, I would say that typically the most frequent calls are a flight issue,
Yep.
delayed, cancellation, etc., or that pesky hotel and their credit card authorization form problems.
Yes. Yep. The hotel. And recently I had one in the New England area and
Mm.
she said, "Oh my gosh, my Uber's going to be
Oh
$140
my
one way."
gosh.
And I was like, "All right, let's figure this out." And so,
Yeah.
like I said, if weird things come up when you're traveling or you have a weird question and I'm here to help answer it. And I'm a quick
Mm.
text away.
Perfect. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about she had a successful embryo transfer. She is well into her pregnancy. What
Love
are
it.
some things that you have seen commonly proposed in a legal contract when it comes to surrogate travel restrictions?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the opposite of what this main topic is about all your travel. Now we want to talk
Yeah.
about when you may not be able to travel.
Where you can't go and when you can't go. Yeah.
Right.
So there are certain states that most contracts outline that you cannot travel through during pregnancy in surrogacy. And this is something that people are like, what? Why? God forbid you go into labor in Louisiana. They are going to make it an absolute nightmare for your intended parents to be on the birth certificate for their baby. So it is super important that you do not travel into these states, that you read your contract. Please read your contracts, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want all the time to just hold a sign, like our little reel that says, read
Yeah.
your contract. Because it depends on what your contract says. Everybody is different. And it's really important that you fully understand what is in your contract because you could accidentally be
Breach.
um, in breach of your contract, and
Mm-hmm.
that is a problem. So you need to know what states you can't travel to. You need to know what there's usually a travel restriction after so many weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually a mile travel restriction as well. You can't travel over 200 miles or whatever it is. Again, this is going to vary from person to person and be based on your contract and your attorney and what you guys figured out. So know your travel restrictions. If you do have a travel restriction and something comes up emergently, somebody gets sick, you need to, go help a family member, God forbid somebody dies. There are exceptions and we can help navigate those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And usually you just need a note from your OB saying they're okay to travel. They don't have any risk of preterm labor right now. They're fine. Go ahead. But definitely be aware of what your GSA states for travel.
Agreed. And open communication, always important.
Yes.
Transparency. We do, part of the discussions you're going to have with me in intake and screening is discussing any known foreseeable upcoming travel in the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know you have a family wedding coming up? Do you know you're about to go on a big family cruise or something? Like, I want to know those things so that we can coordinate and plan your journey accordingly so that you
Yeah.
can still fulfill your goal of being a surrogate, but also making sure that you're not going to be pregnant in the middle of a contract and now unable to go on said vacation because I had no idea about it. And I couldn't help you plan accordingly. So
Yes.
just I know it's really hard for some people to think ahead. That's not
Yes.
everybody's strong point. I get that. But doing your best to be aware and sharing that with your coordinator, with your team, can
Hmm.
really go a long way in making sure everything runs smoothly for all.
Yeah. I always, as a case manager booking travel, if you have TSA pre-check, please let me know so I can add it onto your
Mm.
ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you have travel preferences, we do now a travel preference form, which has just made my life a lot easier. And so I'll send it to you, and it asks you what airport you would prefer to fly out of, what times you would prefer, because I have several people who say, well, let me take my kid to school and then I can
Mm-hmm.
fly out. So, and we try to take those things into consideration. Again, of course, bearing costs in mind.
Mm-hmm.
We do all that we can to keep it as low cost as possible while still being safe and still being efficient.
Agreed. And I think, at least I remember when I was doing it, and I assume you probably work similarly, is that we usually will not book the latest or the last flight out.
Yes.
Um, especially with how travel is these days, flights are so unpredictable and so many delays are common that we want to make sure you have another chance and opportunity to get on another flight same day. And so just keeping that in mind, that if you are going to try to work that day, we're still going to request that there's at least one or two other flights that evening out to try to make sure you're getting where you need to be.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes, especially in the New England area, you'll fly into one airport and fly out of another. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
important. I will send you a whole travel itinerary. It will have all of your information, your flight information, your hotel confirmation, booking number, address, and your clinic appointment all on one sheet. So that way you have it. I always joked that everybody should just make it their screensaver while they're traveling. But
Good idea.
yeah, have it easily accessible and make sure you look at your airports, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I will fly a surrogate into LaGuardia and fly her out of JFK because it
Mm-hmm.
is just so much cheaper and it really doesn't matter. So,
Yeah, they're
um,
also close. Do the intended parents also attend appointments at their IVF clinic, or is this case by case?
yeah, so I mean, definitely a case by case basis. But this is something that will be talked about in your match call. Hey, are you comfortable with them attending appointments? This will be something that's talked about in intake and screening with Kristie. I will ask you about it on your intro to me as your case manager, and then we will talk about it on your match call with your specific intended parents. Are you comfortable with them coming to appointments? How do you feel about it? Do they want to attend appointments? And if everybody is comfortable and happy with it, then yeah, we love to see you guys going to them together. We love to get pictures. If you go and do that, please send us a picture. We love to see you guys together. It's so much fun. And so, yeah, absolutely. If you are comfortable and they are comfortable with it, then yes, you will.
I mean, there's been many cases where the intended parents and the surrogates, their first time meeting in person is at the embryo transfer itself,
Yeah.
or at one of the first monitoring appointments. Our match meetings are done virtually, and so this is a great opportunity to meet face to face on such a amazing opportunity day.
Yes.
Does the surrogate return back to the clinic for the back-to-back betas?
Oh, usually no. Now this will depend. If you're local to the clinic, then yes, they will sometimes just have you go back there for them. But usually no. It will either be at your monitoring clinic, which is hopefully local to you, and if not, so for example, more rural areas, your monitoring clinic still might be an hour and a half to
Mm-hmm.
2 hours away. If that's the case and we are able to, we can just get labs sent to like a LabCorp or a
Mm-hmm.
Quest or whatever your local lab is, and you can just get your betas done at the lab near you. And they're usually every couple of days. So
Mm-hmm.
usually it's 48 hours between, because they want to see them double.
Did you have to travel in your surrogacy journey, Mariah?
Um, yes and no. I was local to both my clinic and my intended parents. So I went to the IVF clinic, but it was still, I mean, 45 minutes from where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an SCH, which most surrogates do at this point. I feel like it's every one of us.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all got them.
I had it.
Yep. I have, I think, 3 right now on our caseload. So like, they're just very, very common. Which, if anybody doesn't know, that's a subchorionic hemorrhage. It's just a bleed inside of your body. Sometimes it causes bleeding for you and it's concerning and scary, but it's almost every time like there's a certain week marker, I'll get a frantic text from a surrogate and I'm like, okay, just hold on. It's probably an SCH. But anyways, I had to have that monitored because mine got pretty big for a little while. So that I had to go back and forth for multiple times. So not local, but local.
Yeah,
It was still a drive because even locally, it's still 45 minutes in traffic and all the
sure,
things. Yeah, were
definitely.
yours local?
So for my two journeys, I would agree with you. They weren't considered local either, but they
Mm-hmm.
were not out of realm where I wouldn't drive.
Ah.
So my first journey, I was 2.5 hours from the actual intended parents clinic, and the second journey, I was closer to 5,
Oh,
which
okay.
I probably could have flown, but we just
That's our
didn't.
borderline.
Yeah, that's kind of that tricky gray area
Mm-hmm.
where I mean, you're almost going to be at the airport for that long anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just drove.
Nice.
And then my monitoring appointments were closer, I think maybe within 25, 30 minutes,
Okay.
which that's better than 2.5
Mm-hmm.
or 5. So we did that.
Awesome. Awesome.
hmm
Yeah.
And both my intended parents were as active as they could be and attending appointments once pregnant and at the IVF and everything of that nature.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. My intended mom came to all of my appointments. She drove me to transfer. That was really fun. She picked me up and I opened the door and she said, "Can I go get you pregnant?" It was very cute. And she went to all of my OB appointments except for when she had COVID, and she was so
Mm,
devastated that she couldn't go. But we FaceTimed her in, and it was great. So yeah, it was really special getting to have her there for all of them. It was really fun.
yeah. And that's a great point about FaceTime. So even if
Yeah.
you aren't local to your intended parents or they are unable to make it for whatever reason, there are providers who will allow for FaceTime. There are providers who won't. That is something you'll want to, request and ask and explain the situation to see if there's any flex in their policies to try and allow, that connection to be had at these appointments if possible.
Yep. And the social worker in me will tell you that if somebody tells you no, ask somebody else.
Yeah,
Advocate for yourself, advocate for your intended parents,
I
because
agree.
that is not always the answer. That might just be what they think the answer is. But if you keep pushing
hmm
and working your way up, usually you can get somebody that goes, this is a special circumstance. So
Right,
yeah.
100%. Will the surrogate per diem for meals if it's local travel?
So this will be based on your benefits package. For our agency, it's after a certain amount of miles. If it is 51 miles or more, 50 miles or more, so more than 50, sorry, starting at mile 51.
Round trip, by the way.
Yep. Yes, round trip. Then yes, you do get per diem. That is because most of the time you're going to go to this appointment. You're going to leave, an hour and a half to 2 hours before your appointment. You're going to be at the appointment for several hours, and then you're going to have to drive 2 hours home. It's very likely that you're going to need to eat within that
hmm
time frame. So yes, of course, you would get per diem based on that.
Correct. After matching, if the Zoom call does not meet your expectations or it just didn't go very well for both
Ooh.
parties, do you return back into the matching pool?
Yes, absolutely. So we try really hard to match based on who we think would be a great match on many different factors. Of course, the big ticket items. But yes, if you get off the call and you're like, that I didn't feel it. I didn't think it was the right match. We reach out to you about 24 hours after and ask how you're feeling. Of course, if you say, I don't think so, I don't want to match with them, then I'm going to ask why and kind of figure out, what was wrong so that way we can get it right next time. But yes, you are never ever pressured into a match,
hmm
and if you do not feel it was the right match for you, then yeah, you go back into matching, the stage matching. And then honestly, most of the time we would probably have another match lined up.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah. At least for us. Maybe not always, depending on your matching preferences. If they're very specific, maybe not. But
hmm
for the most part, there's just always going to be more intended parents than there are surrogates.
So just kind of summarizing what we discussed today, that travel is going to be completely normal, necessary, some form or fashion of it, whether it's near or far, is going to take place in your surrogacy journey. We are here to help you navigate it and to prepare for it and to understand the role of it and all of that.
Yeah.
And for our intended parents, we are there to help make sure we're explaining at all points the cost involved with the travel and trying to be very aware and cautious of your investment in that process. With that said, intended parents are responsible for the expenses related to the surrogate's cost. As I mentioned earlier, becoming a surrogate, the intention is for you not to be out any money during this process. We do need you to have financial stability in case you have to pay for something up front, but reimbursement would be coming back your way.
Yeah.
Agencies. Oh, yeah, go for it.
I just thought about this. I meant to say it earlier. For our agency specifically, we typically do not purchase insurance on any of the flights or things. But if it is something you want, let me know, because I will make sure I add that on. Or if you want anything, sometimes I have, intended parents say, hey, can you get them the early bird check-in? I want to make sure that they're not stressed at the airport. So anything like that, any special travel requests, insurance, other things, just let me know and I'll make sure that those things are added on. But typically our standard is to not buy the insurance.
Yes. That also made me think about specifically more so the intended parents who live close to their clinic or have frequently visited it, whatever. I've had intended parents be like, hey, I've been to this area. I would recommend the hotel in this region. It's easier to get to. It's easier from the airport. You know your area better than we do. We're going off of clinic recommendations or past experience or whatever. So we love that feedback. So please, if you know something, share it. If it makes the experience better for all, we're open ears.
Yes, I do love that so much. I've had that happen actually twice, and I'm like, oh, this is so helpful.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of hotels to choose from, okay? We're doing our best, but we would like to narrow the list down. And if you have the insider tip, share it.
Yes, absolutely.
With that said, agencies are here. We're here to help coordinate. That's what we do. I guess not all agencies may not coordinate, but that's what we do. And it's a very vital part of our services to the intended parents and to the surrogates. And it's meant to help ease the burden and help the communication for all parties involved.
Yeah.
And again, keep the communication open and transparent for your travel needs, your requests, your travel do's and your don'ts. Everything related, we want to be a part of it so that we're all on the same page and getting things booked well for all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that said, if you are ready to begin your surrogacy journey, whether you are an intended parent looking to get started, whether you're a surrogate, we are here. We are happy to start that process for you. We have an application for both intended parents and surrogates on our website at familychoicesurrogacy.com. We are happy just to set up a consultation to connect and share more. Thank you again for joining us tonight on Surrogacy Unwrapped. We greatly appreciate all those who watched.
And have a great night.
Yes, have a good night. Bye, Mariah. Thank you for joining.
Bye, Kristie.